So Bonnie Blue is a woman who's going viral right now for some misogynistic reasons and for some really valid reasons. So on one front, as we tried to see yesterday on stream, the people are coming out with their misogyny to shame her for being a sex worker and to shame her for having a high body count. Okay, that's not good. But then the feminists are also coming out to say that they think her work is predatory as it targets barely legal adult men who are newly out of high school and freshly 18, which I think is very fair as it overlaps and coincides with the kind of adult industry category of barely 18. Only usually the genders are reversed. And since we're a channel that focuses on sort of like the gender neutral experience, I would say regardless of gender, the age gap fantasy has a lot of inappropriate connotations. But before we dive into a podcast with Bonnie, which posted recently, and I think she is held to the fire about her beliefs, I think it's important to kind of like, who is Bonnie? That's a great question. Thank you for asking. Bonnie is a content creator who's actually really small. So right now she's making the rounds because she wants to be more popular, but please pay attention to the numbers. She has 20,000 followers on TikTok. She has 45,000 followers on Instagram. She is a small to medium content creator who is trying to go viral. So that means that she is going to try to be out there in order to get your views. Okay, so now we're dealing with kind of like a Kim Kardashian in a sense, right? They're trying to do the outrage bait, clickbait in order to get people upset. She's been on the whatever podcast. She's been on a lot of things. Okay, now Bonnie, fun fact, is 25 years old and she was born on May 14th, 1999. She's exactly 10 years younger than me because I was born on May 14th, 1989. She said 1 week into schoolies. What's schoolies?
Okay, boys, just 1 week into schoolies and I cannot wait to be on my knees pleasuring you. Oh, and Karen, whilst you've been slating me in your household, your husband has been in the corner with a box of tissues watching my videos. So thank you for raising awareness on my name.
So then she's like making fun of women that are mad at her because she's like, your husband jerks off to me. Okay, like rage bait galore, right?
Okay, boys, it's only 1 week until schoolies and I cannot wait to be pleasuring you.
But she's got a vibe and she's got an aesthetic and okay, we know what's happening. She's cute, blah, 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 blah. Okay, here we go. And she's been on like every podcast she can get her hands on recently. Okay. So then if you Google her, and this is what, so if you go on YouTube and you look up Bonnie, all these people are getting views off her name, which is what she wants, but they're kind of like shaming her and slut shaming her. And then of course there's like the feminist perspective, like I said earlier, where they're like trying to hold her accountable for her predatory behavior, which is the lens we're going to view today. We're going to watch this one. The only negative with this one is that the host's volume is a lot lower than Bonnie's because they're holding their mics at different lengths. But I actually think it's the best one to watch because she asks Bonnie the harder questions. So we're going to use this one to kind of explore like, who is Bonnie Blue? While keeping in mind that ultimately she's a content creator fishing for clout to make money. And this is how she's decided to go viral. And this is why we ask ourselves, they say like all publicity is good publicity, but maybe not. Maybe not, So let's look at this conversation because like I said, I think the questions are much better and you'll learn some fun things about Bonnie that I didn't know ahead of time, which the workers in the audience will be able to give their insight and wisdom as well, that she isn't just somebody. She actually has a little bit of knowledge about safe sex and sex work. But then the question comes into play once again, is it inappropriate for a woman in her mid-20s to be targeting guys just out of high school who are 18 for OnlyFans creation, content creation, and for sexual activity in this particular? Is it good that women or anybody is promoting the narrative of like barely legal?
Having that many people a day saying, oh, you're beautiful, I love talking to you, or you're so interesting, helped my confidence, give me money and gave me freedom. So, but you obviously only can earn money in Cam unless you're directly sat in front of the laptop and you're physically there. So I was like, what if I made some videos and posted them on OnlyFans? Because there's thousands of people telling me they're interested and they like me, like surely some of them would buy the videos. And I think because I'd had that confidence boost from Camin, it allowed me to think, okay, people might want to buy these videos. So yeah, then I started OnlyFans about 2 weeks in to Camin. I went in with like a few solo videos, nothing crazy. Like I really didn't know what I was doing.
And by the way, I just want to make it clear, like I'm not here to defend her. I just want to be very accurate. And obviously I already think she's like inappropriate, even if she's only 26 or 25, targeting 18-year-olds. I think it's inappropriate. I don't think it's good. And I think it pushes like a really bad narrative into the universe. So just FYI.
I had zero understanding.
Yeah.
And then I think 2 weeks after that, so about a month into it, I did my first boy girl.
Are you a really bold person? Like, were you before this quite a bold and confident It sounds very spontaneous and almost like you really threw yourself all in.
100%. Yeah, I've always been like fairly confident, always been quite opinionated, very like dry sense of humor, quite sarcastic.
Yeah.
So always like held myself quite well. But if you just asked my friends or family, would I be doing this now? They would have been like 100% not. Like out of all my friends, yes, I slept around, but you wouldn't have ever expected me to have posted about it.
Okay, interesting. And
Yeah.
when did you start to see real success with your adult content creation? Was it straight away, or was it
No,
when you started
so
to differ the content?
Straight away, I was earning a very comfortable salary. I was earning about 10 to 14,000 a month. But then when November hit last year, there's a thing called schoolies in Australia, which is 18-year-olds. They finish school and they're celebrating on the Gold Coast.
Okay, so now we know what schoolies are. Okay.
Which is where I live in Australia. And my first thought was, okay, I'm going to hand out business cards. I'm just going to introduce myself and try and drive traffic to my OF. But then a lot of them was messaging saying, hey, I'd love to sleep with you and you can film it. And originally, you don't really film content with people unless they're established OF creator. Like, you just seem to work with this tight-knit circle and that's as far as it goes. But over those 4 months prior to that, I'd start to realise how fake and edited the videos are. And I was like, it's not relatable whatsoever. And I like my content to be quite relatable. I want people to enjoy it and be able to imagine themselves in that video. And if I'm just working with people that have got these, six packs, absolutely packing down there, these, whether they're 18 or they're more middle-aged men that are watching my content, probably don't look like that nor perform like that. So I was like, I'd love to make more content that they could imagine themselves in. So it really blew up last year doing schoolies.
Okay, so it blew up when you started making content with 18-year-olds.
Yeah, and I had no idea of how big it was going to come. Like at the time I was like, I think Daily Mail did like an article and it just it made it go crazy. And then from that I was like, okay, the media actually quite like this because yes, it's different, but different is good.
It is a fantasy. It is so let's move into a different bubble and talk about fantasy and why there is age gap fantasies for so many reasons, right? So many reasons, but a lot of it is kind of like the thrill. And I think in a safe space where the fantasy is happening, it's not necessarily wrong. I think it's when the fantasy becomes a reality that I am questioning things. So here's the difference. It's different if two 40-year-olds are role playing where someone is like innocent and virginal and like, oh my God, I've never had sex. And like, that's like, okay, one context. But then it's different when the fantasy becomes a literal reality where these people are literally barely legal and then they're being used by these much older people or these people with an age gap for sexual gratification and money before they've had a chance to really consider the implications. It's the same way I feel about the military. I think it's so wrong that we target high schoolers to join the military. I think it's as predatory as companies targeting children and saying, hey, once you turn 18, you can make a lot of money. Like, I think this is predatory, period. I think the industry is predatory. I think anything that targets children is predatory. I think school loans for college are predatory because you're literally targeting people who are so young and so naive and just don't know better. So for me, I think it's always all predatory, but society has normalized the predatoriness of the military and school loans, but then they come for this woman for this thing, but she is a symptom of a system. So for me, when I see the misogynists coming after her because they're like, if this was a man, you would hate him, without ever considering that these same men that say that are the same men that promote and love people who are men who are targeting women just out of high school, or men that are, quote, being with girls that are 19, or people that are actually bragging about like, as long as she's 18 and she's legal, like, sure, but we're talking about individual morality at some point, which is subjective. But I think the ethics around this are even more so important because I think ethics that, impact society, I think in the long term, this is bad. In the long term, we do not want a society that targets kids coming out of high school into their adulthood barely and acting like them turning 18 automatically makes them the most wise creature in the whole world who can make decisions. We have to give people a chance to become legal enough to start making those decisions, but we should guide them to taking their time and being cautious when making those decisions. As an OF creator myself, who's always, I've done nude parades, I've protested on behalf of like nudist rights. Like I love, flaunting the body, being appropriate with the body, and in context, adoring the body. I love all that stuff. But I always tell people who ask me, like, should I start an OnlyFans? Should I be a sex worker? Should I be nude? I always ask them, what's the context in which you want to engage with this content? Because you can be a nudist who isn't a sex worker, which is what I was for most of my life. Most of my life, I was just naked. Okay, I wasn't a sex worker. I wasn't a sex worker until I really started an OnlyFans. Then I think at that point, I would call myself a sex worker, right? But prior to that, I was just naked. I was like an art groupie. I was like going to like erotic art festivals that were, put on in like art museums. I was participating in the art world, and the art world is very naked, right? We know this. Okay. I've seen a Picasso. I know everything's naked. So when we have these conversations, we also have to see the context in which it's being engaged with, because people see or nudity and automatically demoralize you, dehumanize you, decide that you're gross and disgusting and don't deserve dignity. And I think that's what art communities are trying to change. I think that's what communities that are mindful and thoughtful are trying to change. I don't think we're going to change much if we allow sort of predatory fantasies that are literal. Like, it's not just a fantasy, it's literal, right? She is literally targeting teenagers. So it's literal. It's not a figment of our imagination where we pretend this 26-year-old is actually 18. It is an 18-year-old. So then she runs into the same problem that all of society does. The predatory behavior towards teenagers is seen as normal and allowed because that's just how people are. People are so much more than what they seem to be, if they want to be.
So,
yeah. Well, I mean, you say people were writing articles about it and it blew up online, and it is why we've got you here today, is to kind of address.
Ooh, great quote, Maiden shares from Oscar Wilde, who said, everything in the world is about sex except sex. Sex is about power.
The backlash you've been receiving,
give
you the chance to respond and just kind of talk through the thinking behind it, and if you'd ever change your mind about it. So a lot of your controversy comes around the age of the people that you sleep with. So let's just start with all out. Why do you sleep with 18-year-olds in particular? And you do call them like barely legal and freshly 18. So why do you sleep with that age?
From a business point of view, it's the most searched for category in the hub. It's
right. Listen to what she said. And I actually think this is where people get upset with my work, but I need you to come with me into the work bubble. In the business bubble, Logan Paul is a good example. You can hold him to your moral standard. He's in business. And if you know anything about capitalism, you know it's disgusting because of the way people misuse it. So she is explaining capitalism to us. When people take advantage of the system, they go, oh, this is what the customer base wants. I'm going to give it to them, even if it's bad for the world. This is why people are frustrated with capitalism, because people misuse the system, or the system is kind of built in a way that allows people and incentivizes them to misuse people. So when I look at Logan Paul, I see him as a symptom of the system. When I see Bonnie Blue, I'm like, oh, look, a symptom of the system. Okay. Oh my gosh, Taylor says very Lorax coded. So true. Love the Lorax. Shout out to the Lorax. But that's what she's saying. She's like, okay, if you want it, I'll give it to you, even if it's going to kill you in the long run. And this is the problem with society, is we have to pick morals over money, but understand that money doesn't have to be devoid of morals, right? I have very strict rules for the way that I engage in my adult content. I would love to see her implore at least part of those strict rules, but she's not going to, because then it would take away her whole, I could never do what she's doing because I just think it's so unethical, so immoral, right? The reason she thinks it's justifiable though, is because she's like, well, the market demands it. This is about money for her. So let's remember that she isn't sitting here and pondering ethics. She's not like, oh yes, is it unethical to do this? She's just like, what makes me money? So if we look at her from that lens, a lot of what she's doing makes a lot of sense. But remember, it's not Bonnie who's creating the system. She's just trying to survive in it. This does not exempt her from her bad decision making, but it allows you, the watcher, the observer, to not be as upset, right? Not to be so upset with why it's happening the way that it's happening, right? That's one way for us to balance ourselves, right? Because I don't want us to, we all agree it's predatory. Yes, we all agree, predatory. Why does she feel so proud to be this predatory? Why is she going on podcasts bragging about her predatory behavior? Why do we allow this to happen? That's the harder question to answer. And the same reason people voted for Trump, same reason people back up Destiny, because Destiny also loves hitting on 19-year-olds. Don't get it twisted. And he's in his 30s. This woman is using it too. It's just interesting that hers is a business perspective and other people's their personal life. But see how she's on everyone's podcast talking about it?
The trend in search and has been for a very, very long time, but it's always been schoolgirls as opposed to schoolboys. But teens has always been a busy category on the hub. And
ew! Did you just hear what she said? She said teens have always been a very busy category on the hub. Ew! Ew! See how she doesn't care? See how she's like, ooh, teens. People love teenagers. Ooh, I'm going to make a business about teenagers. Ew. With peace and love.
And I was like, it doesn't just have to be schoolgirls. Like the guys can be the schoolboys. And so yeah, from a big
And look, it's like there is a fantasy out there about like, ooh, I'm so naive. Like I've never seen a naked body before. Oh my goodness. But when you're literally targeting teenagers, then it's just like real. It's gross. Like, whoa, your fantasy shouldn't be a reality. It's too much of a reality, girl.
business point of view, I knew there's money to be made because there's a gap in the market for
Wow.
it being schoolboys. And I call them barely legal teens because I'm aware it's going to get attention. And the more attention I get, the more word it spreads. And the more people that know about it, the more 18-year-olds I can sleep with.
I mean, it is bold to say the, obviously, like 18-year-olds. So I didn't actually know that. So that's the most searched category on porn sites.
Yeah, like it's always been like schoolgirls,
Yeah.
always been teens.
Yeah.
But it's always girls.
Yeah.
What was that? It's not bold to say this. That's the problem is like, oh, we think it's like so bold. You're so bold. You're not bold. You're like, maybe it is bold. It's like arrogant. It's like the way we normalize predatory behavior. See how we normalize it? And this is a symptom of society.
Because this is like the funny thing. Well, it's not really funny, but they
Oh, wait, Troy says bold just means wild in British slang, I think. Okay, bubble language translator. Thank you. So bold just means like wild. I mean, it is wild. Okay.
women are saying, especially the middle-aged women, are saying like, oh, if I was a guy, this would be so wrong. People are calling me a predator. People are calling me a predator anyway, so it makes no difference if I'm a guy or
It's true. People are calling her a predator, right? But I think, again, I don't need to sex shame her in order to make it clear that she's a predator. You're not a predator because your body count is high. So I just want to say this. All the misogynists that are calling her a predator are mocking her for her body count. I want to make it clear you're not a predator because you have a high body count. You're not a predator because you're a sex worker. You're not a predator because you're naked. You're not a predator because you love sex. None of these things make you a predator. Okay? She's exhibiting predatory behavior by targeting young, innocent, naive, just out of high school teens to make money off their naked bodies. That is the predatory behavior. So all of these people that are coming for her, they're calling her a predator for simply existing as a sex worker. That's not what makes you a predator.
female, because my hate's been through the roof in terms of death threats and nonstop, abuse. But so it makes no difference if I'm a guy, but there's been no uproar for these content creators that I see with, they market their videos as schoolgirls and they're happy for them to dress up as schoolgirls. And I've done it the other way around. And there's a letter for
Well, see, okay, so now she's doing this thing where like, if they can do it, why can't I do it? None of you should be doing it. Sorry, I just yelled into the mic. None of you should be doing it. None of you. Stop. Both of you, all of you, stop. Okay. Chat says, I don't think sleeping with somebody above the legal age makes you a predator in the same way. Okay, here's a challenge to that. You remember how the Olsen twins were going to turn 18 and all the guys had a countdown to when they would be legal? Do you think that's predatory behavior? Yes or no? Do you think it's predatory behavior that when that one girl, I forget her name, the Catch Me Outside girl, had a countdown to her OnlyFans, the moment she turned 18, they made money? That's the same thing, girl. That's what she's doing. Okay, you said yes? Great. Then it is predatory. Because what she's doing, okay, is she's targeting them just as they turn 18 so they can do the barely legal stuff. You said that's different though? Well, I need you to understand the context of the Are you having a different conversation now? Is that what you're doing? But if you're saying that even outside of this context, a 26-year-old sleeping with an 18-year-old isn't automatically predatory, I think you're wrong. Now, they might not be predators. They might not be like, I'm going to have sex with an 18-year-old. They're still engaging in predatory behavior by neglecting to take into account the naivety of the person that they're having sex with.
age gap between me and them is what these other content creators are. But there's a massive uproar.
Do you not think there's a bit of a difference though with content that is labelled as schoolgirls? They are they're well-known set-up scenes where it's obviously an adult star that is dressed as a schoolgirl, whereas your situation is actual
real
schoolboys.
Yeah.
So do you not think there's a difference there?
Yeah, it definitely is like a bit of a difference, but in a way it's worse because when they're doing the adult content ones, which are fake, the schoolgirl most of the time is pretending, oh no, I don't really want it, or pretending to be shy. Then you're blurring the consent because it looks like that schoolgirl doesn't want it. Then it leads into a very rough sex scene. Whereas when I'm doing it from the start, they're very clearly consenting, they're very clearly wanting it. So mine's actually a lot better to watch in terms of educational and allows you to understand consent better as opposed to me dressing up as a schoolgirl, working with someone double my age.
I mean, it is true that the reverse male fantasy is a guy who really, really wants it and a mommy dommy who comes in and like shows him everything like he's been missing, versus the girls when they're reversed. It's like a girl who doesn't want it and a guy who takes advantage of it. Though there is also the virginal girl who's like, oh my God, I want a daddy to show me the ropes. So there is like that part of it.
And then pretending, oh, I'm this naive, innocent girl that doesn't really want it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess that.
Okay, so chat says, yes, but a millionaire and a poor person are in very different stages of life. That's not true. Being a millionaire and being a poor person is not about a different stage of life at all. If you think it is, I don't know who you're interacting with. Do you think I'm at a different stage of my life than a 26-year-old with $2 million in their bank account versus me? You think that's a different stage of life? You could have a totally immature 18-year-old who has $10 million in their account and a 40-year-old who's helping with charity functions and raising money for the poor, who's at a different, what do you mean a different stage of life? Everyone's at a different stage of life, and it's not always dependent on age, but it often is reflected in age. Yes, you have two different struggles, different needs and priorities. You're wrong. You're equating money with different struggles and needs. That doesn't make any sense. Like I'm going to stop engaging with you. You have bad ideas. Next, look, ultimately, it's not always about age, but it is often about age. So you could have a very young person who targets an older person who's disabled, in the way we saw with that fortune teller story from Ray William Johnson. Do you remember? She was younger, but took advantage of an older person. That happens. But more than often, it is the reverse, the older person taking advantage of the younger person. Now, outside of this, is she taking advantage of the circumstance in which the world has landed in relation to age gap relationships in order to make money? Yes. So she's not necessarily taking advantage of like these boys in that traditional predatory sense. She's doing it in a monetary predator sense, right? I think it is predatory for the military to target young people in high school and ROTC to encourage them to join the military, because they've been modeled to do this thing that they don't even fully understand, right? Similar to her saying, hey, make a sex tape with me, put your body on the internet. You know, this is going to be so hot. I'm so hot. You're going to love it. And then now we have this situation that's occurring, right? So it's about the circumstance. I'm open to the nuance of the categorization 1,000 billion trillion %. But this category is pretty clear cut. So she's at least minimally financially predatorizing them.
That is a difference there.
Yeah.
So you've mentioned educational and
Yeah.
You have previously said, just going to read it out, that you're educating the younger generation on safe sex, consent, and allowing them to understand their bodies and those they're sleeping with.
Yeah.
So how do you think your content does that?
Because so a lot of the people I sleep with, whether they're virgins or not, they're new to sex, they're 18, they're fairly new to it. So when I'm sleeping with them, I'm showing them what I enjoy. I'm asking them what they enjoy. So they're starting to learn their bodies, learning what they enjoy, you know, how best they feel pleasure and how best to pleasure me. Because when you're watching content online, you know, that's quite edited. Sometimes they're really pulling your hair, but actually it's been done different, or the professional knows how to pull it. Same with choking or spanking and stuff. Like, I'm teaching them how to do it, or, okay, this feels best, or it feels better if you do it like this. So they're learning a lot that way. And in terms of safe sex, when you're a sex worker, you get tested every 2 weeks. Whereas most of the people you sleep with, if you were back on a one-night stand, they've not just gone and had a full panel recently. Like,
that's true. That part is true about STIs. Not enough people are getting tested or using the right medication or condoms.
People don't. I never used to get tested before being in the industry. And also, when I sleep with someone that isn't tested, they always wear a condom. And most of these 18-year-olds...
Okay, so you're still practicing unsafe sex, but okay.
Go, oh God, I've not worn a condom before, I don't use condom. Or they assume this.
I don't know, it feels like if you don't get tested before sex, like you can have safer sex, but it's still not fully safe sex, but at least it's halfway safe sex. I guess that's good, you know?
Sex is not going to be fun if you put a condom on. And that's sort of like, people always think, oh, the condom ruins the fun. And it's not the case. You can still have a very good time, still finish.
True.
And have a pleasurable experience, even if you're wearing a condom.
But I guess that with...
Well, hold on. Chet says, I think you can advocate for safe sex and education without literally fucking your clients. Well, then she wouldn't be a very good sex worker. Like, as a sex worker, you should fuck your clients if that's what you do. If you do full service sex work, you should probably be having sex with your clients. That's kind of what they're paying you for, right? So, like, that doesn't make any sense. But the dilemma is, like, who are your clients? You know, like, who are the clients, right? Like, you can add, like, sex workers are jobs. You're allowed to have, I think you should be allowed to have sex for money and have it be safe and consensual. Okay, I just want to make that really clear. And I think it would be great to have a sex worker community that like actually prioritizes education and all these other things, right? Like all of that is great. I just think, and I do think an 18-year-old who's maybe too insecure to have sex with somebody in his life is and should be allowed to pay for a sex worker. right? Like, I want to make this abundantly clear that we are not here to like shame sex workers or people's ability to utilize their jobs, right? So like, I'm open to the fact that you could be 18 and you want to go to a 40-year-old sex worker who can make you feel like a person. That's beautiful, because that's a business situation. But that's not the same thing as being recorded, exploited, put on the internet, never to be erased, jobs not taking into consideration your future. Like, I want to make it abundantly clear that there are situations in which this could be appropriate because it's private, it's closed off, there are no videotapes. Like, I just want to say, like, I want to make this abundantly clear that there is a way to be interactive and intimate with people with a big age gap between you. Right? Like, I'm not completely opposed to people seeking out older people to have sex with, to kind of learn the ropes from, if that older person understands the context and they understand the context. But I just think it is an opportunity for a lot of abuse. So we have to be careful, right? It's an opportunity for a lot of people to take advantage because they want to be the first one to get to you. That could be dangerous. We want to make sure that, you're not leading somebody on, right? Great point. Luda says, and the sex worker wouldn't be pursuing the 18-year-old. Exactly. It's not like the sex worker would be actively pursuing, but this is a type of sex worker. So there are different types of sex workers, right? Survival sex work is a whole other thing, right? There's a whole other, like, this is so much more nuanced, but I do think there's ethics in sex work that I would love to see happen in the industry that I think could make everyone's life so much better and easier, but we're not there yet. We're still working on it. And I think she is not helping. Even though she's branding herself like she's helping, which, to be fair, in her bubble, okay, hold on. Let's jump into her bubble mentally. Maybe in her bubble, she is harm reducing. But in our bubble, she's not harm reducing because we're past this stage of harm reduction knowledge. Maybe if we went to her bubble, she's like literally harm reducing because she's making them use condoms and getting tested, and there's contracts and all that other stuff. Yeah, that's kind of interesting. But from our bubble, it seems like not harm reduction because we wouldn't do this. Maybe. Okay.
Getting tested every 2 weeks, whereas people don't get tested. Like, you on average will have sex with a lot more people
100%
than what other people do. So getting tested every 2
And remember, she's not in the porn industry. I just want to like make that clear. She is not in the porn industry. The porn industry is not sex work. Like, I think, if from my understanding of my bubble, porn industry is traditional porn companies and film companies. She is not in the porn industry. Okay, just to make sure, right? Because it is fucked up. It's really fucked up. I think she gets a lot of her inspiration from the porn industry, which is why it's bad. But she is just an OnlyFans creator, which means she's independent, right?
2 weeks if you're having sex with, say, I don't know, 20 people in a day, versus someone getting tested less often if they're having sex with 2 people in a month. Like, there is a big difference there, and there must still be a risk associated with that.
Like, I do get that, but it takes one person, to get something. But also, when I'm working with people, they're also tested. Obviously, it's different when it's students, which is why they have to wear condoms. But when it's other content creators, this is our job, this is how we earn money. So we're never going to risk having unprotected sex. And they also get tested. So it's a much safer environment than what people think.
Okay. And on the education, do you really think it is educational to young men what it's like having sex with their peers when they have sex with you, with your physical appearance and your sexual experience? Is that a realistic expectation of what sex is going to be like with their peers?
No. So when they have sex with me compared to when they have sex with another 18-year-old girl, it's going to be different.
Okay. Chez says, do you think she has she would have as much criticism if she was in the regular porn industry? No. If she was in the regular porn industry, I think she'd get away with it a lot better because it's already happening there, but that's why it's bad. That's why the porn industry is so dangerous, because it is happening there and it shouldn't be. Right?
Yeah.
Just as if you sleep with one porn star to another porn star, it's going to be different. Everyone does think different. Everyone's got different techniques. God, when I work with some other girls, I'm looking at the way they do things. I think, oh, that looks good. I might try that. So yes, it's going to be different from experience to experience. But when they sleep with that next girl, they can be like, oh, we can try this. Or, oh, let me do this to you. This might feel good. So no, it's perhaps not going to be at the same level. But over time, they can learn and, they can try new things on that next girl that they've learned on me, or I've been able to teach them.
Also, like, the scenario. So, these people, they're contacting you on social media. They've never met you.
Yeah.
Sometimes queuing in the street or meeting up with you in a hotel or an Airbnb or wherever.
Yeah.
Having their sex filmed and then having no autonomy of who's going to see this.
Yeah.
It being on the internet forever. it doesn't really ring safe sex to me. Like that word doesn't
Ooh, good question. Good question.
come to the forefront of my mind. Do you really think that is completely safe?
Yeah, because when you think of a normal 18-year-old, say they're at uni and they're going to go and sleep with someone, it's probably after a night out, they've had drinks and stuff, they've gone back, had sex, probably hadn't wore a condom, and the next night they can't remember much of it. When they're coming to me, it's pre-planned. So they've already thought about it beforehand. They have to fill in 2 consent forms. They have to bring ID. So they've already been able to think about it a lot, and they're fully aware. Like it's not a shock on the day, oh, I'm going to film it. They're aware they need to film it, and it's in a controlled environment. You can't be drinking beforehand. You can't have done drugs. So when you think of a safe environment, it's the security on the door as well. So it's sort of, what about it is unsafe?
I love all the protocols she's taking. I think that's really, really good. I wonder if I looked at these men and I said, so you're a sex worker. How would they feel about that? Like, you know how Andrew Tate's a sex worker, but he always says he's not, but he is one. But the men do kind of do men benefit from the loophole? Are the men benefiting from the misogyny that she's the sex worker and they're just like the guest star? Because she's the one being sex shamed and the men aren't. But then Andrew Tate was the same thing where like he would do the sex work too, but he wasn't considered the sex worker. Chad says oral sex condoms is not safe, Bonnie. Oral without condoms. I mean, you can have oral without condoms and be safe. But it depends on how she's doing things, right? Like, obviously, all of us have oral sex without condoms. We're having safe sex. So, like, it depends on how the conversation is going. You can have safe sex without, like, it depends on what you define as sex. Like, or safe. So, like, we're really struggling here with definitions because, obviously, all of us have, do you guys put a condom on every dick you suck? Like, no. Because, like, you get tested and they haven't been with anyone else. So, with her, she could have been tested, not have been with anyone else for a span of time, and she can have oral sex without condoms, but it just depends, right? I don't know. I don't know though. I don't know. She's probably more, I don't know. It's hard to say. Yeah, I guess it depends on this, but obviously you can, gonorrhea and herpes and all these other things can transfer through oral sex. So I understand this commenter's perspective. And also guys, when I'm replying to the comment section, I'm not always talking to you directly. Sometimes I'm just using your question to answer the question for somebody else who might be thinking it. Because if you're thinking it, somebody else is. So when people watch this clip later, I can also bring it up because you made me also think of something. And then I'm thinking, oh, if somebody's watching this, they probably have that question too. So don't take it too personal if I reply to your comments, okay? Because your comments trigger a good thought in my head of like, ooh, I should answer that for other people too. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, I don't know. Okay, let's keep going. Let's see.
I guess it's the knowledge of how well informed they are. It's the knowledge that this is online forever.
Yeah.
And if they are 18, they've just left school.
Yeah.
Do they have the maturity to be able to make those kinds of decisions?
Yeah.
Because that is a huge decision. Your sex tape being online for good, and like, let's be honest, you are earning the money from that.
Yes. Yeah. Wait. Oh, the boys aren't being paid. Oh, that's fucked up. Oh, she's not paying the boys. I mean, of course not, but also wait, that's kind of fucked up because they're working. Like, I kind of feel like that's fucked up.
I guess it does beg a kind of power dynamic of are they mature enough to consent to that? I guess that's the big question.
And yes, it is legal because in the same way when YouTubers collab together, we don't pay each other. The same way OnlyFans models, like most OnlyFans models are not giving each other payments. They're doing it to build audiences. So it is legal. Of course it is. And it's appropriate, by the way. It is very appropriate. Like, I think it would be inappropriate for content creators to be like, hey, if you want to collab on my channel, I have to pay you or you have to pay me. Like, that sounds like a nightmare. So obviously I don't want people to have to pay. I think it's the fact that they're not sex workers building an account that is a part of the problem. Yeah, because they're not working. But then at the same time, like, if my friends are helping me do a photo shoot, like, do I have to pay them? But then what if you have a boyfriend you're dating? Do you have to pay him if he's in a sex tape with you? That doesn't work, right? Yeah, I don't know what's going on here. This is too messy. See, you know what it is? It's just too messy. It's too messy. Like, why would you even put yourself through this messiness? I think it's too messy. But also, yeah, this is crazy. Would never do that. I would never take a risk like this. This is crazy.
Yeah, 100%. the thing is with that then, it's if we're saying 18 is too young to consent, they need to change the law. Do you know what I mean? Like if the law's 18, I'm going to abide by it and I'll go for 18. If they change it to
so if it's 16, she's going to do it even if it's legal.
21, I'll up it to 21. So
if it's legal and it says they're 16, that I do it because they were 16. I got it, girl. That's crazy. Am I being hashtag sarcastic, guys? Or / tone indicator sarcastic. Okay. So basically that's the issue with that argument, right? Well, if 18 is the law, then that's what I'm going to do. Hello. But that's the problem with these industries. The problem with these industries is that they're only here for the dollar. They're not here for your well-being. That's the problem. So ethics-wise, I think it's bad for this to be a precedent. But legally, I think we have to figure out what age in the sand is going to be our adult age. And it's not going to be perfect because there's no, oh, you're 17 here, now you're 18, and now you're an adult. It's more like being very cautious and considerate about the fact that people don't just become, wisdomists. That's a joke from Friends. It's a Friends joke. I see how I make all these like inside jokes with myself. Anyways, doesn't mean they're wise just because they turned 18. I mean, hell, you're not wise just because you turned 50. So there has to be, this is why we need mentors and parents so we can guide our kids into taking safe risks. Like we want you to take risks, but be safe about it. And I think that's what we can look forward to is like a world where people are like, you will learn how to take appropriate risks over time. And one of them, again, student loans for college, predatory, military, predatory. This predatory. This is ruining the youth. You talk about trans people and gay people ruining the youth. These three things are ruining the youth. And I blame the heterosexuals. I blame nobody. But these three things, if you could eradicate this problem in society, man, so many people would be so better off.
When people have got an issue with that, they're sort of just putting their other problems on me. It's like, if you don't agree with it being 18, go to Parliament, stop, get out my comment section.
Wow.
But as well with 18-year-olds.
I mean, look, I'm not going to go to her comment section and bother her, and I don't think you should either. For the record, I don't think you should go to her comment section and bother her because she is a symptom of the system. You should go to your fellow politicians and advocate for people.
And we say, they don't understand the digital footprint and stuff. I know if I spoke to an 18-year-old, they understand social media more than I do. They have been brought up with it the whole time. And the mums that comment on my page saying, they don't understand the internet. I guarantee if they went and say, brought a new iPhone and they needed it setting up, they would be asking their 18-year-old son to set that up. They know their son is better with technology than what they are. Yet suddenly it comes to this and the parents that have had very little understanding or education on OnlyFans or the industry suddenly think they know it all.
Yeah. It's a fair point. I'd like a statement about go to Parliament. That's a punchy one.
But it is, when they're like, it's wrong. It's not wrong. Like, when people say I should be arrested, it's like, why? Because it's legal. Like, I can understand you're not going to agree with it, and my content isn't for everyone, nor is it made for the middle-aged women that, give me a lot of the hate. It's like, this video isn't for you. It's for your husbands and your sons. So, yeah, it's not me they've got the problem with. It's just I'm the face of it.
So on that note, who is it made for then? So it's educational.
Yeah.
To who? So are you expecting 18-year-old boys to be signing up to your OnlyFans and viewing it, or who is the audience?
No, so majority of the 18-year-olds are probably broke and they'll watch the leaked ones. They're probably not paying for it.
Yeah.
But even if you are in your 30s or 40s, which are probably majority of my subscribers are, they're the ones that are paying for it, they're not sex experts. So they enjoy watching the younger ones as well. They enjoy seeing how someone that isn't a professional star treats me or the way they are.
You know how barely legal is a category of types of people like? So is amateur, because it's not in a studio. One of the reasons people like the amateur is because it's real people having sex. And it is to some extent until it isn't. That's why they don't like the high production or other parts of it. I think that is probably playing a huge role in this, right? Which is sort of interesting. I think it would be so cool if therapists and people that are interested in, trauma and why we do things could dissect these sort of interactions. Why are we interested in these sort of dynamics? What is it about it? Now, I have a theory, and I think it's probably more accurate than not, that people like the fantasy idea of things more than the reality of it. But sometimes when they go do it in the reality of it, it doesn't feel as satisfying as the fantasy, and they don't know why. And sometimes I think our brains are having this really great experience of heightening up the fantasy to be so much more satisfying than real life could. So when you exhibit it in real life, you're like, why aren't I happy? It's like people who dream about being millionaires, but then they become millionaires and they're miserable. It was because the fantasy was better than the reality, right? The fantasy is always better than the reality. That's why you can't live in fantasy. You have to make your reality better than any fantasy you could create. And it's usually done in ways that aren't obvious. it's, even though it's pretty obvious that like dating an 18-year-old isn't going to fulfill your life, or getting millions of dollars isn't going to fulfill your life, people still are convinced it will. But then, you know, they just have a hard time with the reality that it's not. Right. So I think moving forward, it'd be really nice to move society in a direction of deconstructing these fantasies, and then also giving a safe space for people to have them. Right. Like, I want a safe space for people to have a fantasy that doesn't have to become a reality. Because there are ways to make like fantasies a lot of fun that might mimic something that if it happened in real life wouldn't be that great. You know, like this whole like barely legal, which really is just some sort of an innocent, like, if it's predatory and like, oh, you're so young, okay, that's really gross. But if it's like, oh, you're innocent and I've never seen a naked person before, then that can just be kind of like a fun sex moment, right? I'm not going to shame someone for having a fantasy. It's like the dragon stuff, like Bad Dragon. It's a company, makes adult toys. It's like, nobody wants to have sex with a real dragon, but it's the fantasy of like, oh, you're a monster and I don't even get a say in it. But it's not about rape, because like rape is not about sex. Right? It's about something different. So like all of these things are very nuanced for people, and they can't deeply understand it. Chat says, LOL, I'm still convinced becoming a millionaire will make me happy. Someone please prove me wrong. Well, I'll tell you this. I'm not a millionaire and I'm very happy. I don't know. Maybe I just have a better life than you do. I don't know. But like, I actually meet too many people that are so happy with their life and none of them are millionaires. It is literally an age-old tale of fiction that the rich man is not as happy as the poor man. But the poor man isn't, he's rich in spirit, as they say, right? But the poor man isn't actually like poor in the way we think about it. He's just poor compared to the rich man. Being poor compared to the rich man does not mean you are poor. Discord says I'm pretty happy, but like, I'd take $1 million. No, don't get it twisted. I'm very happy, but I will also take $1 million. $1 million helps, but it's not the reason you're happy. Like, joyful, truly, right? But it's very helpful. I will also take $1 million. Please subscribe, guys. Please subscribe.
More when it's like an 18 or younger one, because when you're doing your other ones, like my other professional porn, they take charge a lot more. You're a lot more like dominated by them.
Hold on. Chet says, is it predatory part that she's allowing 18-year-olds to make that decision when some of them, maybe most of them, might not fully be ready for what they choose? It's predatory in the same way that it's been predatory since day one of humanity. Targeting naive people to benefit off their bodies and labor for the exchange of what you promised them, which is an orgasm, in the context that is beyond their comprehension. It's a tale old time. Like, this is a story that's been told for 1,000 years, more, billions of years. You know what I mean? Like, ever since humans were here. It's the group of people who are convincing them, you're smart, you're 18, you know what you're doing, you can do this, you're so mature for your age. It's like, how is that not predatory? But this is a classic nightmare fairy tale story. And so what we're doing is we're mitigating that harm by not promoting it as a norm. Like she said, if the legal age was 21, she'd move it to 21, which indicates if the legal age was 15, she'd move it to 15. That's the problem. Alice, thank you so much for the super chat. I don't have $1 million, but here's $2. Let's go. Thank you. So again, I just want to make sure that we're not putting people in a position to be taken advantage of. And I think this doesn't do enough of that to avoid that, right? Like, I don't know in what world we want to encourage 18-year-olds to be making porn. But that doesn't mean that some 18-year-olds aren't capable of making that decision. But I want to know that it's a decision they want to make and not one out of survival or being desperate or proving to their friends they're cool. Or, you know, I want to make sure it's something that they're really doing for them. And I just don't think there's enough protocol to make sure that's true. And I don't think it's very high probability that we could get there without someone doing a lot of internal work, you know?
So it's not the 18-year-olds that content is for, it's the older generation.
So I guess that begs the question of how educational is it then? Because you're not teaching someone you're not teaching most people. Obviously, some people might not have had sex before, but you're not teaching most people how to have sex if they're in their 30s, 40s.
Yeah.
Are you then just contributing to the kind of creepy schoolgirl?
No, so that's why I try and sleep with as many as possible. The more I sleep with, the more I educate. So that's why I did 100.
Yeah, I think it's like putting herself on this pedestal of educator that's the problem, right? I think that's kind of the dilemma. Chat says, I don't think having sex at 18 is bad for anyone. Nobody said that. But nobody said that. Nobody said having sex at 18 is bad. Who said that? I didn't say that.
The more numbers you get out, the more I'm educating and face to face. And there's no better lesson than someone teaching you in person.
I see. So you're saying the educational aspect is to the person in the room with you,
yeah,
not to the person watching your OnlyFans.
Obviously, the older generation do learn a lot as well. And I always get like such good feedback from it. And there is younger people that watch it. However, the bulk of it and the bulk of my subscribers are older than 18, because at 18, you're broke majority of the time. Do you know what I mean? You're not going to be paying.
The best. If she wanted to be purely educational, she would have sex with another experienced person and they would have the sex, but it doesn't appeal in the same way. So she could have sex with somebody who looks young, but is actually older and more mature and on her age, on her level. And that could be another way of doing it. Right. So I think that's the dilemma here. But, you know, again, maybe in her bubble, this is a form of harm reduction. But I just want to say, in the greater scheme of things, this is a short-term solution to a long-term problem, and this is contributing to that long-term problem. So my argument around the ethics of this is that it might sound really good temporarily for how she's doing things, but I don't think it's true. Now, chat says she said she had sex with over 100 people in 2 weeks. Sounds painful. I don't believe her. So I know people are saying she did, but I will be honest, if fitness gurus are lying online, I guarantee you sex workers are, because they're content creators, right? They're all the same. Content creators lie. And I'll show you one of the big bubble pops I had about people with like six packs or people in the fitness Instagram industry is they take all the photos ahead of time and then put it out over time. Right. And I think that's what she's doing here, where she's probably been making content over a large span of time, but is putting it out as if, oh, I just had sex for like this fast, which, by the way, some people could do as like a challenge. What's that content creator's name? I don't like her. Ayla did it for her birthday. Ayla had like a sex orgy party for her birthday. I don't like her either, but she went on trigonometry. So I know she can't be trusted. You know what I mean? Anyone who goes on that channel, I can't trust them. But anyways, Ayla did the same thing where Ayla had like a birthday party where a bunch of people gangbanged her. I read the article on her website and it was like you're not doing it. You're doing it for it's not a normal thing. And the reason I didn't like Ayla's story is because, and maybe we'll go over it one day. The reason I didn't like it is she literally said like she had to fight and kick back because that's her reflex in bed, which to me just screams like trauma. If your reflex of having an orgy with people is that you have to fight them off and people have to hold you down, huge red flag. Like, I can't handle, nope, that's not healthy. I'm sorry. So when we have these conversations about sex and safe sex and what feels good and what doesn't feel coerced, you also have to ask yourself, are you forcing yourself into this position just to prove something? And that's why a lot of people replace like sex with therapy, because they think if they just force themselves through something uncomfortable, it would like open up something about them. And maybe that's true in a safe way. That's why I loved BDSM and really safe dungeons, because they allowed you to do that without crossing boundaries. And if you cross boundaries, they recommended therapy. Because yeah, there is a way to have a safe space to challenge yourself without it replacing therapy. Right?
For content.
Yeah, that's fair. But I guess that's an interesting thing to kind of lay out, is that it's educational to people in the room. That's what you think it's educational to people in the room, but it's short. So what we've kind of gathered from that is that it's not educational on OnlyFans, particularly if the audience is in their 30s and 40s.
So when I used to be a full service worker, I would sleep with obviously people that was a lot older as well. And they'd always be like, oh, I love that video. I loved seeing how you did it with this person. I loved seeing how you reacted when they finished early. So it is educational. And there's not a certain age where you stop learning. You can learn new things, learn new tricks at any age. So it is educational. It's in person. It's more educational to the 18-year-olds that I'm sleeping with. Online, it's more educational to the older.
Is this good branding? I can't tell, because even if this is obviously a branding decision, but is it good branding? Imagine you're a regular person. Don't imagine you're us. Imagine you're not read about sex work. Imagine you know nothing about sex work. Imagine you know nothing about this. If you were like a normie and you saw her, could this convince you to be more open to sex work? Because I think it might, right? Because again, we're like on the other side of it. We're like, okay, but imagine you're brand new, right? Imagine you know nothing about it. I think this might make people... Yeah, I think normies might eat it up and be like, oh my God, I think somebody could have a big bubble pop watching her and be like, oh, sex is freeing. Sex is educational. Sex could be cool. Is she breaking a stigma for some bubbles? I think she might. Because you remember when I was talking on stream the other day about when I was a bad thinker and I was coming out of my conservative church bubble? And I was like, yeah, if somebody wants to be kinky, cool. If somebody wants to smear shit on their body, cool. Like, as long as everyone's consenting. I think it's gross, but as long as everyone's consenting. There's like a part of your brain that goes, yeah, why can't people have sex at 18? Why can't people be in porn? Why can't people do this? And like a part of that is true. And I think that's true. You should say, why can't people do this? And then you should say, because of this reason. So it's like the military. Why can't 18-year-olds be in the military? I'm not saying you can't be, but I'm saying maybe don't be. It's not that I want to take away your legal right to be. I want you to consider the ethics and morals and the implications. Now, the law, I don't think necessarily has to reflect ethics and morals. I don't. I think it should allow people an opportunity to do something that they never have to do. Just because it's legal doesn't mean you have to do it. And that's the thing. Even though it's legal and you're 18 and you can join the military, maybe not. Like, maybe don't do it. And that's the dilemma. People think, well, if it's illegal, why can't I? Well, you have other options, though. You have other options.
Generation.
Do you not find it slightly strange that someone would go on OnlyFans and choose the content with a virgin over the content of like a couple, say?
No. Virgin fantasies are too relatable to a lot of people for a lot of reasons. Sometimes trauma, sometimes not. Like, there's something, it's not literally virginity. Like, some people are literal thinkers when they do porn, and some people are like energy feelers. Like, I've noticed a lot of neurodivergents watch a lot of porn for the feeling it gives them, not for what's actually happening on screen. But a lot of people watch it for what's literally happening on screen. So like, if I ever watch something, I don't really watch anything, but I watch a lot of hentai sometimes on occasion. And I have this one hentai thing I go back to all the time. It's just a solo video of like a devil girl, but her face has like a very specific facial thing that I really like, but it's not about exactly what's happening on screen. It's about the energy I feel with the way that it's drawn. That's how it feels. It's like, oh, I like the energy of what I'm seeing. And when I want that energy to be fresh in my mind, I like watch this little video. And it's like, okay, cool. And that like, it's a feeling I get. It's not like what's actually happening. Right. And I think for some people it is. And so for the people that's literally, then it's kind of like unnerving. Cause I'm like, oh, are you literally into the virgin aspect? Because like, I do not care that it's literally a virgin. But if you literally care, then that's weird. Right. But I think it's the energy for a lot of people. So let's be weary and concerned about the people that are literal about like, oh, I love that as a schoolgirl, literally. And I'm like, oh, because like, if I actually imagined a real schoolgirl, like I get a repulsion. I'm like, ew. But if it's like the energy of like a schoolgirl, then I'm like, okay, the vibes are different than the literal fantasy of it. Because if I'm being literal, I'm grossed out. I'm never having sex again. It's kind of like, okay, do you ever do this? Maybe this is for my autistic girlies. Sometimes I kind of get grossed out at sex. Not literally, but it's like, oh, like what is this? What are we doing? Like, what's happening? Like, sometimes the texture reality hits me and I'm like, oh my God, humans are weird. Like, why are we just bumping uglies right now? But then when you're in it, the feelings are so good. Like, sex is so great. But then sometimes I get a texture sensitivity and I'm like, oh, that's weird. And like, I literally think it's neurodivergent, but I was like, I love sex. Don't get me wrong. But yeah, sometimes I get like, oh, bodies are weird. Oh, like kissing. I love making out with my partner, but sometimes I realize like what we're doing and I'm like, is that weird? Like, blah, 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 blah. Like, oh, like sometimes I think about it too much. Sometimes I think about it too much. And then I'm like, oh, but see, I love it. Like, I love it. Okay. So again, just like with food, I love food, but sometimes it grosses me out. But it doesn't mean that the sex is gross. It doesn't mean the food is gross. Okay, this is not going to work for normies. Normies will not understand this conversation. My favorite meal of all time can gross me out if I imagine the texture in a weird way. So same with sex. So, okay, shout out to sex, shout out to food. Okay, like, okay, Chat says, I think about how we cook, how we like chicken and missionary. I don't know what any of that means. Oh, how we look like a chicken in Missionary. Wait, that's so true. Sometimes when I'm eating chicken, this is what I made it. Sorry, your comment made me remember chicken. Sometimes when I'm eating chicken, I gross myself out because I'm like, oh, it's a chicken. Like it's an animal. And I'm like, oh, yeah, like even something I like, I can gross myself out and then I won't be able to eat it for like 4 weeks. Anyways, shout out to texture sensitivities and sensory issues. Woo woo.
In their late 20s, like even if it's legal,
yeah,
it's fine in that sense. Do you not find it slightly strange to think of like an old man subscribing to OnlyFans to watch a clip of like, you've mentioned virgins that maybe struggle to get hard or that kind of thing. Like, do you not find that strange?
No, like the sex world is so different. And there's so many different like fetishes people have or interests. And I'm just like, who am I to judge what turns them on? Who am I to judge what's going to make them finish? So if they enjoy it and I enjoy making the content, I'm not going to look into it that deep. Like, yes, you could sit there and psychologists would, absolutely rinse it probably, but it's not that deep. They enjoy watching it. I enjoy making it. And it's as simple as that.
Okay, so you've obviously mentioned educational to them in person,
yes,
maybe not so online. So the posting of the videos, is it 18-year-olds because of the money it brings you in and the fame it brings you in with how controversial it is? Does it all come back down to money and fame?
There's a mixture. Like they're so energetic.
I mean, it's obviously about that. Let's be real.
They're so excited and happy, and they're the ones that are out and about, and they're the ones that I can meet in big numbers. Because if you go to the clubs, I only have to go to one club and I'll meet loads of people, have loads of photos with, not subscribers, but with fans. So doing that target audience is perfect because I can reach it so quickly and in a short amount of time. As opposed to if I'm targeting 30, 40-year-olds, you might have a couple at the pub, but you're going to have to go to a lot of pubs to reach the numbers you do, as if I just go to a single club. And yeah, in terms of money, me sleeping with 18-year-olds is good money.
Okay.
So you say it's partly to do with like the speed of getting people.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, like if I did ones with husbands when I was in Australia, I only slept with 16 that night. Whereas if I
just don't believe her. I mean, maybe she could have slept with 16 people in a night. It's just like, I don't know. I don't know if I believe that, but it's possible. It is possible. Obviously it happens. Like, it's just kind of crazy, but yeah, okay, good for her, I guess.
I do a student one, I can get the numbers up very high and very quickly. And husbands are less likely to queue up with their friends. Do you know what I mean? They've got to be careful. They've got to be hiding from the wives and people are going to see them.
I also, the complicated part about being a sex worker is you're kind of like a therapist. Like if somebody comes to you and says, they're cheating, you're under no moral obligation to go tell their spouse. And I believe that, right? Because like, that's not your relationship with this stranger, with this person. So I do believe that. I think sex workers are not obligated to get involved with their customers' cheating relationships. But I think it's also interesting to be faced with the reality that you're contributing to someone cheating on their spouse, right? So there's something to be said about that. But yeah, it's kind of interesting.
Students aren't as bothered and they're not as, fazed by judgment. So I know I can get the high numbers when I do 18-year-olds.
What is it about the number of people? Because did you say, was it 16 you just said? 16 husbands?
When I did husbands, yeah.
I mean, to the average person, that sounds like a lot. So what's like the...
Chad says, is it possible she might have sex addiction or something that needs therapy? I don't know. Maybe, who knows? We all need therapy, but I don't know. I don't know if she's exhibiting capitalism. I'm diagnosing her with capitalism. She's just running a business and she's trying to get the most for her buck. She's not a very popular person right now. She's got a small following. So she's not actually she's not Belle Delphine popular, Belle Delphine, and you want to talk about predators, people who were into Belle Delphine's aesthetic. See, I could see that Belle Delphine was pretty, but I'm not into her. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, she's so pretty, but I'm not like into her because she's too little. She looks young and I'm not into the young thing. You know what I mean? I'm not into it.
The reason for getting so many in at once, you say it's like an efficiency and speed thing to have 18-year-olds.
Yeah. So the reason I do high numbers is 1, publicity, and 2, freshers doesn't last for ages. So you've got it's freshers week, which is why I try and get the numbers in. Same when I do schoolies and same when I do spring break. It's not all year round. If it was all year round, I would not be pushing to get that many in a week. It's not. So
okay, I get that. Then she could be having that much sex. Ugh, my body could not. I would not be able to have sex with 16 different people in a day. Honestly, I ain't having sex more than twice a day, girl. Like, let's be real. Maybe when I was younger, I could have like a fest all day. But I'm old, okay? Sex twice a day max, okay?
If there's an event going on and I know there's going to be high numbers of students there, then I'll try and sleep with as many as possible.
From a business perspective, that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's really interesting to hear like what you've got to say. You've got such a unique life.
Like I get it. It is different. Like it is very different.
Yeah. Do you understand that you've got a really unique thought?
Yeah. Well, I used to worry, because when I used to work in the office and everyone would chat about their stories or their life, they would go, oh, I used to work here, then I used to live here, then I did this as a job. And I used to think, I've gone straight from school into recruitment. I live in the same town that I've, been in my whole life. And I'm basically going to be in this job until I retire. And then now, like, the roles have completely switched. I tend to have good stories and I'm the one that seems to have this crazy life.
Yeah.
I'm aware it's crazy, but it feels normal now. I think because I'm so used.
I agree with that. It definitely does start to feel very normal.
And the people around me are all fully aware of what I do. So even when I tell them these shocking stories like, oh my God, today I slept with X amount of people, that sounds like a normal day for you.
Yeah. It's not scary at all. You don't ever find it scary?
Scary? Oh, scary. I mean, I guess it could be if it's you. Oh, let's see what the story is.
With the amount of hate, yes, it has been a bit intimidating, a bit scary. So I now have like full-time security, but I'm not scared to the point where I'd ever think about stopping or slowing down. If anything, it has the opposite effect. I think I'm going to prove to you I'm doing nothing wrong. I'm going to show you no matter what you comment, my face is going to be everywhere. And even if you don't want me to see it with your son, I will.
Damn. She's in that like, yeah, shock factor. Exactly. She's like shocking. She wants to like piss you off, which works, right? That's why those OnlyFans girls go on the whatever podcast and it, sit through that abuse on Fresh and Fit. Because afterwards, all those men angry wink to them. So that humans are we so amazing as a species? We just think we're so smart and so good. And then these men who think they're so smart will literally be the reason these women keep going into work because they keep paying them. I love it. I love humans. Honestly, I'm not going to sit through that abuse. No amount of money is worth that amount of abuse. Sorry. That's the difference between different categories of people is like, you will never see me on the whatever podcast or Fresh and Fit. I could never get paid enough to go on one of those shows. Actually, that's a lie. I could get paid enough. How much? Oh, that's a great story. How much would I have to get paid to go on the whatever podcast or Fresh and Fit for it to be worth it to me? Ooh, that's a great question. Wait. Discord says 200K. Nah, not good enough, bro. I have to be able to like buy something I want, like a house or something. So at least 500,000 to $1 million. Yeah. I would say like it has to be worth like me attaining a goal. Like right now, my biggest financial goal is to buy a house. So I'd say at least 500,000 to $1 million. And then I could buy the house I want. Yeah. Not that I want $1 million house. I'm just saying I want to be able to pay for the house and taxes. Because remember, if they give me that money, I have to pay tax on it. So if you do $200,000, you're paying like so much. Like that's a lot of tax.
Bold statements. I mean, you've seen the kind of comments that you've received in the last few weeks. We've seen a lot of them too. You've been called a predator.
Yeah.
People are even alleging that you should be on the offenders list.
Yes.
No, that's silly. I think it's silly to say these people should be on the offender list because I don't think that makes any sense from a legal perspective. But I do think that socially, if this was like my friend or my sister, I'd be like, okay, with peace and love, I'm open with boundaries. This is inappropriate. And I think what you're doing is too far for me. So I'm going to need to step away. I just think you should reconsider what you're doing and how you're impacting people and the way that you're interacting with them. I think it's too much. I just think I don't like this branding. I wouldn't like it no matter who was doing it. I just think it's really gross. So I don't think you should be on a list, but I think societally, I think this is too impactful long-term.
Educate yourself. They're 18, consenting. It's their bodies. They choose.
No, if this was a good enough argument, I wouldn't also be anti the military in this sense. This is the problem. They're 18 is not a good enough argument. Like if I was a part of a recruiter, like if I had a recruiter in the family that was like, I'm in the military and I always target high schoolers because they're stupid and they'll do it. They're naive. Like they're 18, they can do it. I would also stop talking to that person. If I had somebody in the family that was a lender and was like, oh, the greatest people to get are kids who are going to college, bro. They always sign up for the biggest loans. I'm like, you're bad. That's bad. Like you're doing bad things. Right. So like if it doesn't, it's not about the sex work because obviously I'm a sex worker. It's not about the sex work. It's about the targeting of vulnerable people in order to take advantage of them because you think they're like remember The Big Short? Remember the movie The Big Short about the 2008 crash? That was there's an infamous scene that's really, really good with the guy from New Girl where he's like bragging about giving home loans to people he knows can't afford it. He's like bragging because he gets a payout. And the character, I think it's Steve Carell's character or somebody's character, he goes, why is he admitting faults? Why is he bragging about it? And his guy friends are like, oh, he doesn't realize that it's like against the law in some way. He doesn't realize he's doing something bad because it's just what everyone's doing. People will brag about doing things if they think there's no shame to it. You know, and that's maybe why, and not that shame is good necessarily, but there's no, maybe probably she just said, right? I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm going to prove it to you. Even if you want me to sleep with your sons, I will. Chat says, so the argument is really that you don't think 18-year-olds are old enough to consent. I think realistically, we have got to put an age that is the age of adulthood. But I think we should strive for a society that guides young, new, fresh adults into making wise decisions, and not to assume that just because they're 18, that they're going to consent within wisdom. 18-year-olds can consent, but not with wisdom. And so it'd be great if we could encourage our 18-year-olds to learn how to wisely make decisions, but it's difficult, right? When the world is sitting here and telling you, like, you're so mature for your age, you're old enough, nobody can tell you you're not old enough. Legally, you should have the right to do what you want. But I think it'd be great for society to sort of move people forward, right? Who defines what is wise, though? Well, in a philosophical sense, no one's wise, really. But in a literal sense, I mean, do you not live in a society that where you help people make better decisions? If an 18-year-old came to you and said, hey, I'm going to take out a loan with a 40% interest rate, would you tell them that's a good decision? Or would you say that's not a wise decision? Let's try to get you a lower interest rate on a loan.
Choose to contact me. Yes, I put videos out there to say, hey, this is where I'm going to be. Come and get me on my knees. But that's their choice if they then come. I'm not forcing them. I'm not dragging them. They're the ones queuing there for absolutely hours, or they've tried messaging for weeks. Like, it's not, if I was forcing them off the street, dragging them up, then yeah, call me a predator. But it's not the case. And it's like I said, they're 18, they're consenting. I've got video evidence of them enjoying it. So it's up to them.
I guess it kind of comes from them choosing to meet you.
Yeah.
But it comes back to that, how vulnerable is that person at 18, how well informed are they at that age. It all comes back to, can they really make that decision to queue up down the street for 8 hours to meet a 25-year-old to film them having sex? So let's talk about freshers. So
yes.
I've been to uni. You mentioned you haven't, so maybe you don't fully get this feeling, but you go to a new city, you're meeting all new people.
Exactly.
You're in a totally new environment. You're starting a whole new life chapter. Do you not think those people are vulnerable?
I sort of get where you're coming from, but then they're sort of lonely. Do you know what I mean? They want to have a bonding experience, and I'm able to offer that. Like,
that's great. I think sex workers should absolutely give lonely people opportunities for intimacy that feels somewhat authentic, though it's always temporary. A sex worker, in my opinion, gives you a certain type of intimacy that is not the same as somebody you're deeply in love with, but it is a form of valid intimacy. But she's not just giving them that. If she was doing that in private and it wasn't filmed and it wasn't for her benefit and her OnlyFans, totally. But she's not doing that alone. She's saying, I will give you this vulnerability and this intimacy, but you have to let me put your body on the internet, which is like very strange.
When you go to uni, you don't know who's going to be like in your halls or who's going to be, in your societies. So I was thinking, like, what better way?
And let's say the people regret being on the video. Are they allowed to tell her to take it down? Is that allowed? Like, that's what's confusing is like, but I don't know. It's hard to say. Who has the right to a video? And also, if it is on OnlyFans, they do have to sign a contract with OnlyFans. Fun fact, if you don't know this, anyone that's visibly seen in an OF post has to consent to being in the video. Otherwise, OnlyFans takes it down. So if I post a video where I'm out on the street and people are in the background, they'll most likely take down that video. They did it on a couple of my videos because they said the people in the background weren't consenting. I'm not sure if it's in every video, but for my work, they did. I showed a video where I was at the beach one time and they took down the video because there was people in the background. So they're pretty strict on like who can show up on the platform.
Then getting to meet them, coming to see me, having an experience you haven't done before and just starting your year off right.
Do you not think a lot of them will be going home to their halls, kind of sat alone in their room and be reflecting on this wild day that they've had? And
maybe with like a box of tissues watching the video back, but not in terms of like, oh, what have I done? And like they choose as well, because I've seen a comment a lot of, oh, what when they're doing a job interview in X amount of years' time and stuff like that. Well, a lot of them don't show their face. So if you was interviewing me for a job now and you say, oh, I've seen that tape of you, I'd be more thinking, well, how have you seen me from waist down? And that's me. Do you know what I mean? So it's not, you can't add these people up. Half the time, I can't remember whose penis belongs to whose face.
I mean, that's fair. So their faces aren't being shown, right? That's what she just said. Okay, that's something. Yeah, it's like I would prefer that she engaged with content creators in this regard. Okay, so in BDSM, in an art, I would say that it would be more ethical for people to participate in art that's nude at 18 than sex work that's at 18 because it's a business. I actually think the business element of it is what is predatory because now there's money involved. So when I think about the best, like everyone, like some people think all BDSM is sex work. It's not. It's actually just like people who are connecting without the need for money to be there. Because obviously, like when money is involved, there is always an aspect of, would I be doing this without the money? Right. And so that's just like what work is. Would I do this without money? For some people, yeah, they're lucky. They turn the thing they love into a job. That's great. For other people, they wouldn't. So I think if you're doing this because you absolutely want to, and it's not about money, then it's like a very different experience. So like in Seattle, when they have like the solstice parade and people are naked and they paint their bodies and it's not about sex, it's about expression and art. And you're naked from all ages, having like a lot of fun. It's more just like a safe environment for people just to have a bunch of fun, right? That's a totally different context than somebody who's like filming and putting it on OF to be seen in an objectifying manner. And the irony is like at these parades where these things happen in their family events, like it is very taboo to film people. Even though you might film the parade, you know, they're very cautious. There's security, there's people coming around. You know, I think she's doing the best she can in her bubble to mitigate harm. But to me, the fact that she's doing it at all, for me, is too much harm. Does that make sense? I'm sure if I was in her bubble with her mindset, I would think I was doing everything possible to keep these boys safe. But for me, I think in the long run, this is less good than more good in every sense. And I could never engage in this behavior because I just don't think it's long-term healthy for anybody. But I can see why she feels like she's mitigating the harm. So there's STI testing. The boys aren't being seen. You know, they're over the age of 18, of course, all of these things. I can see from her perspective why she feels like she's doing her best at the harm reduction. I just, at this point in my life, I couldn't be able to engage in this behavior and agree that it's harm reduction. Yeah.
How is an employee 10 years down the line going to go, I remember seeing your penis on OF along with the other 158? And
that's true. If she's protecting them from employment in the future, then I think that's very thoughtful.
If I was only sleeping with 2 or 3 people, and those people then told people, hey, I filmed with...
You know what it is? It's a part of her branding. The branding's the problem. If the branding was different and it wasn't so predatory, because the branding is predatory. Like, I don't know if she understands this, but it is predatory to say barely 18. It is inherently predatory in my mind to dub anything barely 18, newly 18, freshly 18, 18. Like that, the branding is predatory. So now I don't know if everything connected to it is, but it certainly seems like it. Right? Yeah. Wait, how is she protecting them? I'm confused. Well, she's getting them tested. There's 2 forms of consent. There's IDs involved. Their faces aren't in the videos. Like these are all forms of protecting. Right? So like if we're being very nuanced, these are all forms of protecting. But the branding is predatory because yes, chat's right. It gets her more views. And she is, you're right, chat, appealing to something a bit gross in people, which is a problem, right? Chat says, I think she also views them as adults because they're over 18 and thus she's not responsible for protecting them past a threshold. She's protected herself in business. That's true. Chat says, but she's not paying them. I think it's kind of weird she's not paying them, but let me give you a counter to that. Again, do you think all YouTubers should pay each other if we do collabs? Do you think if I collab with a YouTuber, I should pay them? Because that's what you're saying. And I don't think that's true because that's not how anything works. Every time you go on a podcast, do you think you should be paid? Every time you create a work of art, do you think you should be paid? Because some people just volunteer for these things. And I think it's weird to expect payment, but I would say it depends. You know, like for me, it's all the same because I'm a YouTuber and an OnlyFans model. So if my friend was like, hey, do you want to do an OnlyFans shoot together? I'm like, oh yeah, great. I wouldn't think to pay them. And I wouldn't think for them to pay me. If I went on their OnlyFans, I would never think to ask for money. Even though they're making money off of me, that is how the industry works. because you're paying each other by collabing with each other. So I don't know. I think it depends on the circumstance. But if I asked my friend, can you come help me with something in which you get no benefit in terms of exposure, I will pay them. Right? Like if I asked my friend to help me on something, but they were in no way benefiting enough to be equal exposure, then I would pay them. Creator to creator though, Brittany, that's a good point. Yeah, so then the issue is that they're not creators. Do you think partners of sex workers should have to get paid like an employee? So I think what happens is sometimes we think all rules apply to everybody, and I don't think it makes sense. So then how do we make it that rules only apply in certain circumstances, but not in others? And I think this is what's hard, because I don't think so. I don't think couples should have to pay each other for being in each other's porn videos, unless they're both workers. Like, unless they are literally working with them, because it's not like, it doesn't make sense. So I guess I'm very contextual with this. I feel like the context really, really matters. Like I pay some of my friends, like if my friend's a hairstylist and I need a consultation, I'll pay them for their time. Even if I don't get a haircut. If I just talk to them and I'm like, hey, can I bother you for 45 minutes? I will pay them for that 45 minutes. But some people think that's crazy. I just think it depends on the circumstance. But if my friend who's the hairstylist joins me for a video collab, I wouldn't pay them necessarily. Maybe I would, but I probably wouldn't. It depends if they did my hair, or it depends on what we decided. I think we'd have to negotiate. So that in that case, these boys are negotiating, and I think that they are fine with what they're saying up for. And I think that's also okay. Yeah, I think it shouldn't. I don't like that it exists in the first place, the 18-year-old. But I think, okay, you know why I'm having a hard time with this part is what if they're not 18? What if they're 45? I just feel like a 45-year-old should be able to do things for free. I just feel like people should be able to do things for free. Do you know what I mean? Like, I just think adults should be allowed to say, don't pay me, I'm okay with it. What if they regret it? Hey, that sucks. You can go to therapy. Regret is a part of the human condition. You will always regret things. Get over it, go to therapy. Sorry, get over it sounds harsh. Everyone has moments they regret because we're not perfect. So you have to live your life, process your regrets, and move on. You can't live in regret. Okay? Of course you can regret things. It's like, you know what I hate about regret? It makes you make everyone's life harder. Because you remember that woman, Deep Throat, who was abused by the porn industry, which is valid? She spent her life being in such regret that she made it harder on sex workers in the future to have a life. I don't want your regret to be everybody else's problem. Just because you regret it doesn't mean other people will. But if you say, hey, just so you know, in my opinion, I had this experience. Here's what I learned from it. Do with that what you will. Then that's different. This is why I try not to make prescriptions, because maybe it went badly for me, but maybe it won't go badly for you. Maybe it went great for me, but it won't go great for you. So that's why you have to make sure that your regret isn't encouraging people to miss out on a life that would have worked for them.
And just on that note of someone's kind of age, schoolies you mentioned, so that's when people leave year 12 in Australia, so they're even younger. Like they're guaranteed to have, almost guaranteed to have not left home yet because they've just finished school.
Yeah, so they tend to still live at home. Obviously everyone's different, but they probably still live at home, and you go to the...
Hold on. Chad says, I feel like if this was a man, we would be having a much tougher stance on her. I don't agree. I think I'm just as strong against men who do this. I think the difference is that men also speak about it differently. So I'm meeting her where she's at. Think about the men in contrast who have this conversation between the women. When do those men ever mention consent? When do those men ever mention contracts? When do those men mention STI testing? When do those men consider anything about the people they're dealing with? I do not agree that our assessment is not taking into consideration how she's talking about it. And we've already said it's predatory. The dilemma is we're also thinking about her perspective. Men who are in these positions are usually not thinking or talking about it the way she is. And that's partially because she's a woman, right? Her female experience might be giving her a different perspective on the way to do this that goes along and contrasts the male perspective, right? Because in my opinion, a man couldn't have this perspective because a man in the porn industry isn't educated this way. Now, again, I already said what she's doing is wrong. I think it's predatory, but I think it's predatory for a different reason than all the men who use, because the men who are literally into the younger women, right? Those men, they're like literally into them because they're young. She's into it because it's good for business. And I think that does change sort of the predatory nature of it. So she's financially predatory. I don't think she's sexually predatory. I think she isn't necessarily into the fact that they're young. I think she's into the fact that it's good for branding. Right? Like, I think that's the impression I'm getting. So of course I'm going to be less aggravated with her. But the men are like, their pussies are better. They're better because they don't know anything. They're really gross about it. So then I'm like more gross towards them.
The Gold Coast for a week sort of holiday. Okay, whereas at uni you've sort of left, you've temporarily left home.
So it's when you finish like college in the UK or sixth form in the UK, it'd be the equivalent of that.
Yes.
And going on a holiday to mark leaving year 12.
And go to Marbella with the girls or whatever to celebrate, that sort of thing, yeah.
So if you kind of vaguely understand how I might think that freshers could be vulnerable, are they not even more vulnerable?
It's, same age, they're 18, and it's a similar situation, it's their decision. If they want to do it, they will. And the other thing is they see every bit of press I get. They see the good, the bad and the ugly, and they're still choosing to do it. So when people are saying they don't understand the consequences, they do. And
I think that's probably true to some extent. Also, I wonder how many of the men she has sex with who want to be sex workers. And they're just trying it out to see if they like it. Because I've jumped out of a plane 3 times. I've gotten tattoos done. I've taken a lot of risks in my life, right? I've been to dungeons. I've done BDSM. I've done needle play. I've done whipping. I've done flogging. I've done rope. I've done a lot of things in my life. And I did a lot of BDSM with people with much larger age gaps than me. And a lot of it was not predatory. It was very lovely and consensual and thoughtful. To be fair, I wasn't having sex with most of them. I only had sex with like 2 of those older people. Most of them I just did BDSM with, no sex, no genital play, no kissing, nothing like that, no orgasm. So to be fair, I think the interactions allowed me to navigate the spaces differently. I think there is a space for something like this to occur in a less predatory fashion, but the money is obviously predatory. The branding is predatory. So many of this stuff for me is just I wouldn't like it. Like I said, I'd be like, this isn't good. You should stop doing this. This isn't helping the way you think it's helping, but it's probably helping, weirdly enough, some of these people. It's like drugs. Here's my wisdom about drugs. I love drugs. I really recommend you do them in your later 20s, which is really hard for people. But your brain isn't done developing, and you're going to impact a lot of your biological experience if you do drugs too early. But if you're going to do drugs, do them safely. And I think there is a safe way for young people to do drugs, but the safest way is not to do them at all. Probably better to wait. But if you're going to do it, let's harm reduce the experience. And I think that's probably where she's at, where it's like, hey, they're going to do it anyways. That's the problem. Just because they're going to do it doesn't mean you have to participate. It's like parents who throw booze parties for their kids at 15 because they figure they're going to do it anyways. Maybe not though. Maybe not. You sure, but also maybe not. And I know everywhere is different. Kids drink younger in different places. Maybe you don't have to participate just because they're going to do it anyways. Because I think that's kind of the predatory element is you're not leading by example. I think you have to lead by example, And I'm not saying it's a big deal if your parents give you a beer when you're a minor. I'm saying it's different if you're throwing ragers because you figure it's safer for your kids to do it at home. I feel like your kid shouldn't be at ragers. But also that's the point of being a teenager is you rebel and you go to a rager and your parents don't know. It just feels like all of this is very context based.
So they understand it probably more than what I do.
Yeah, okay. And I did want to mention, actually, I just saw it today, that have you seen a petition that's been launched?
Yeah.
So there's a change.org petition to try and block you from re-entering Australia and to cancel your visa. As of filming, it's on about 8,000 signatures.
Yeah.
What's your response to that?
So the big thing that's come from is the hate on TikTok. And on TikTok, a lot of the hate's come from schoolies, which is coming up, and they're saying, oh, they're underage, they're going to be drunk, and they're going to be under the influence. So from reading those 3 allegations, they've then set up a petition, which they're then signing. So they're signing that on behalf of false information and facts that aren't true. So if they want to continue wasting their time, it's you're not even educated, because I would be broke and in trouble if I was filming with people at 17. OnlyFans do not allow under 18. And yeah, like I said, they are of age. They have to sign a form, multiple consent forms, and they have to do a breathalyzer for schoolies. So
I was just going to ask that. So they do a breathalyzer
for schoolies. I haven't done that previously. I keep on my filming during the daytime. And before they've had to sign a form, say they have not taken drugs or alcohol within 24 hours of this. Whereas from schoolies this year, they're going to be doing a breathalyzer test as well as.
So you're getting more strict with the kind of rules and regulations around your content.
Yeah, people are waiting for a slip up, and like I said, it's not going to happen. If anything, it's going to be the complete opposite. So yeah, they're going to have to be breathalyzed this time as well as. But
No. Chet says, I thought she said she would do it at age 16. Was that hypothetical? That was my hypothetical. She never said she would do, I didn't hear her say that. That was my hypothetical. I said her reasoning and her logic doesn't make sense for her to say like they're 18, it doesn't matter. Because like if that's the case, then like if it's 14, would it matter? It's not about the age. I just use that as an example.
But like I said, they're signing that petition on behalf of saying they're underage, they're drinking, they're under the influence. However, they're not. So you're signing that on false allegations. And even the hotel I'm due to film at released a statement, and well, actually someone called up, I don't know if you've seen it on TikTok, to say Bonnie's coming to your hotel, like ban her, she shouldn't be there, she's going to commit a crime. And the hotel agreed with them. But how can you agree to say I'm committing a crime when I'm not? You are hotel staff, and just some random guy on TikTok phoning up, and suddenly you know the law better than the police. If there was a law being broken, I'm sure the police would have contacted me by now.
So you've got banned from the hotel in Australia?
Well, the hotel have asked me not to go. However, you're not allowed to discriminate against sex
I mean, it's bad publicity, probably more or less. But yeah, interesting.
workers. Yes, I don't have to film there, but you can't discriminate me being there.
Okay.
Okay. Have you had that often, being chucked out of hotels? Or
Yes, I did. I went in a hostel actually, and I filmed a video in there, and that went quite viral. And then I went to return to that hostel like 6 months later, and as soon as I walked in, I was escorted straight back out.
Interesting.
Well, because isn't she using their property to film a video? Like, I could see that from a branding perspective. You wouldn't want the brand to be sex worker who fucks teenagers uses our property for video. Yeah, like I feel like that's kind of fair. Like Sabrina Carpenter, did you see the news of how she filmed a music video that was scandalous in a church, and the priest who let her do it got fired, but he also got fired because he was taking money from the church for his own things. So it's kind of like, yeah, like I don't think Sabrina Carpenter should be half naked in a church. That feels super disrespectful to like religious people. I mean, I love it as an ex-Catholic, but I don't think it's funny for them. Right? Like that's offensive. Like I wouldn't say go to a mosque and be naked. Like that's so offensive. You know what I mean? But like a fake mosque, sure. But like a fake church, sure. But not a literal one. I mean, Jesus.
Do you, just to go like off topic slightly, are you getting recognised all the time now in the street and everything?
Yeah, it's weird because I still see it as like, I'm aware I get attention, but then it's different. You know, when it happens in person, people are like, oh, can I have a photo? Like, or when I'm with my family and people are like, hey, can I have a photo? And my family just find it crazy.
Yeah, it brings it home, doesn't it? That you actually are being seen
like,
by
oh my God, I
people.
can't believe they know you, or like, oh my God, I can't believe they stopped you for a photo. But yeah, so I always absolutely love it because obviously I'm no celebrity or anything like that, but I'm always so thankful or grateful if someone even just wants to stop and say hi or stop for a photo, because if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't have a single thing I have now.
Are you concerned?
Oh, a great point from chat says, so the 16 thing wouldn't work out because the international statute's on CP. That's a great point, actually. You're right. OnlyFans wouldn't let her show them on. So she wouldn't do someone who's 16, even if it was legal, because it wouldn't get her money on OF. Good point.
That's the people kind of asking for a photo is also going to be people hating you in real life, and you getting kind of hate on the streets as well.
So you mean like the people that ask for a photo could be giving me hate?
Just that if people are coming up to you asking for photos, there's surely a lot of people that are recognising you that have strong like dislike to you, that have seen you on TikTok and Instagram and whatever. Does that not concern you?
I think when I go to Australia, it'll be the first time I experience hate in person. Yeah, I've not had a single person come up to me. People like to talk on social media. Half the time, they're just sat at home, miserable and unhappy. You know, they can't even be bothered to get up, let alone come and see me to give me hate. So yeah, I think in Australia it will happen because they've wound themselves up that much. And like these videos on TikTok, people booking flights and accommodation near the area I'm staying, to come and either say, stomp my head in or put me in the ground. And I think then as a parent, you're saying you're concerned and you want to, you know, either support women or you want to support children. I'm still just a 24-year-old girl and you're saying you're going to stomp my head in and that you're going to report me to the police. But if anything, if you're giving me a death threat and telling me you're going to put me underground, you're the one that like belongs in a jail cell, not me.
I'm sorry that people are saying those things to you. You have to kind of be scared for that.
Yeah, like I do. Like I said, when I'm there, I'm going to have full-time security. And if someone was to come for me, I'd happily go back for him. But if anything, I just feel sorry for him. Like when I get some of these messages, they are that aggressive and that hateful. I just think you can't be sat there with your friends or your family having a good day saying, sorry, just let me stop you 1 second. I'm just going to send this death threat, or let me just send these really aggressive messages to this girl. Like you're not a happy person. Like they're the ones that are unhappy and need help, not me.
So you kind of say a lot of your hate comes from like middle-aged women and angry mums.
Yes.
But there are a lot of people that you do cause a lot of controversy online, because there are a lot of people that just genuinely are concerned about your behaviour.
Yeah.
Does it not make the amount of people that are calling you predatory online, does that not make you sit and think, is any of my behaviour wrong here?
If it was coming from my target audience, which is men, 100%. But it's not. It's from women that my audience isn't for. Women haven't got like a high rate of watching, you know, porn or being pro-sex workers. So if, like I said, if the roles were a switch and it was men giving me this hate, I would reconsider the way I market myself. I'd reconsider the content I make. But it's not like those women, even if they did like me, would not be subscribing to my content. So in my eyes, it makes no difference if the women like me or dislike me.
So a subscriber's not saying it, so it doesn't matter.
Basically, yeah. Or like my fans or Instagram followers and stuff, they're the ones that support me and like me. Like if, like I said, my target audience was women and then I was getting this hate, I'd be thinking, gosh, I need to change this, but it's not.
Interesting. It's a very strong-willed to be called such strong things and kind of not like react.
I think it's because I love what I do and I see how happy it makes me, how happy it makes them. So I just can't be, like I said, I can understand people have their opinions and they don't like it. But when I actually live the life I do and I get to see how happy they are, the people I work with or the people I pleasure, I just think, how could I ever be unhappy?
I guess what a lot of people are kind of thinking is that, yes, they might be happy while they're in the room with you, but it's the long-term, what's this going to be like in 5 years when the...
I just feel like it's the same conversation 5 times. Does it feel like we've heard her say the same thing like 5 times?
A lot of these boys kind of grow up and think, I've got a sex tape online from when I was 18, from Freshers Week.
100%.
I guess, like, from that, to go into, like, the practicalities of it, have you had anyone say, please, can you take that video down?
No.
No one.
And the thing is, there's no secret, I sleep with a lot of people. And I've been doing this since November last year, sleeping with, like, 18-year-olds and people that aren't in the industry. Not had one person yet step forward and say they want content removed or they want it taken down. So this is the other thing, which why I'm so confident and bold in what I do, because not one person has. And if that happens, yes, I would delete the video, but I'm aware things get leaked and sometimes I can't control what's out there. But
yeah, it just feels like we're talking about the same thing over and over again. I think the issue is that no one's getting to the root of the problem, and then they're upset that she's not getting to the root of the problem. But I think I'm not hearing like an exact understanding of, like, nobody's like using the language like we're using in this bubble. So I wonder if it's like a little repetitive. It's getting repetitive for me, for my brain. I don't know about you guys, but it feels like, I feel like we're having the conversation I wish they were having. Even though the questions are good, right? Like, they're almost like good questions, but then she's asking the same questions in different ways. So I wish they would like get into it, but I don't think they can. I think this is where the bubble is. I think this is the cap of the bubble, which is so fair. I feel like she's trying to say, this is where I'm at. This is what I'm doing. This is my reasoning. This is it. Which is like, okay, sure. Okay. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's what it is. You guys feel the same way, or what do we think? Do we want to finish this? We're like 30 minutes more of this. Do we want to finish this, or do we feel like we understand the situation? Chat says the interviewer doesn't have the tools to ask deeper questions. Yeah, I don't think so either, which is fine. I agree. It's totally fine. But yeah, there's like something that we're just like, okay, I feel like I get it. You're in this for business. You're going to make good money. You don't think it's bad. You think it's legal. Okay. I'm over it. Okay, let's move on, because a good video, good point. I think we covered everything we wanted to cover with this. We get it. We get why you're doing it. Capitalism, am I right? You know what I mean? Like, yeah, like you think it's okay because you're making money. Okay, cool.
Stuck in my head, in real life while in bed, my belly's being fed and I'm okay. I'm just fine, yet all I do is whine. Not to you in my mind, cause I know I don't make sense. I've been nothing but blessed, so why's my life a mess? Please tell me, cause I'm sick of thinking. Yeah, I'm sick of reaching out for the truth and living life as a fool. Dun, da, 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 da.